again. Long time no see, right? So, opening panel. Definitely one of the most interesting panels because somehow we should set the stage for the rest of the conversations for the upcoming 2 days. So let me introduce really our creme de la creme of the pharma industry. So we have Saskia from Bayer. Hallo Saskia, wie geht es Ihnen diesen Morgen?
Sehr gut, vielen Dank. Thank you. Great to be here. Great to see you, everyone.
Thank you. We have Ronízia from Biogen. Ronízia, same question. How are you doing? All fine?
Absolutely great. I love the atmosphere and congratulations for everything you've done for Next. It's quite impressive.
Thanks a lot, but please say that tomorrow after everything finishes. And Mostafa Taha from Merck. Same question.
Very excited to be here as usual and looking forward to a fantastic event.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Well, if I would do an analogy, because we are having an upcoming Euro in Germany, I would say we have on stage like literally the Tony Kroos of the industry, we have Neymar of the industry, and Salah from Egypt, right? I think the analogy is good. Right?
I love it.
Yeah, okay, nice one. So let's start with the discussion. I mean, change and transformation, based on the opening which we discussed at the very beginning, I mean, it's something what we definitely can't stop as an industry, right? So what do you see as the critical parts of transformation nowadays for pharma? Maybe we can start with you, Saskia, because you're actually at the end of the row.
At the end, okay. Yeah, happy to start. Well, first of all, I think you touched on actually the thing that it's an unprecedented speed we see outside in our environment and how it's changing. And I think this is something, even if we know change before, this is now ultimately exponentially picking up. And what we see at Bayer actually are two key things where we say this is really challenges, these are really challenges and we need to address them. The first one is ultimately bureaucracy, and I know that sounds like duh, we've heard that before, isn't that something we have been saying for years? And I'll tell you a little bit more what we think about that. And the second one is having the right skills and profiles on board and making sure that you're ultimately equipped and skilled to do this transformation. So maybe with the first one, bureaucracy, and I know we're all like, oh, LMR reviews, and you even have it there on your entry chart. What we do see is, and what we ask ourselves is, are we ultimately set up in a way from our operating model, as well as the way that we act, to be successful in this super fast change here? And our answer, which we had at Bayer almost like roughly a year ago, was actually, no, we're not. We need to drastically change the way we're ultimately set up and the way we operate. So what does that mean? We now really started to look into, we should not have hierarchies, which are like 5, 6, 7, 8 layers deep. People sitting in their little pockets, trying in a very linear fashion, actually to get project or programs out the door. We said, why don't we think about doing it maybe slightly differently, where we say, you know what, don't have all these levels, drastically reduce it, maybe come together then in cross-functional teams and they run in 90-day sprints. And that includes all functions, not just commercial, or then like literally this cross-functional team. And it sounds like, okay, but you do this in certain areas of the organization. No, we're doing this across the board. Like literally saying after 90 days we stop, we look at the outcomes, not outputs. And this is something we are holistically implementing at the organization right now. And this is a massive mindset change, as you can imagine. But that's how we want to address bureaucracy and just be extremely fast and flexible, how we ultimately deliver them against, I want to say, the value to the customer and be more centric. And again, this huge change, huge shift. The second one, and I want to make sure I don't fall here on the floor to the crocodiles because I talked too long. The second one, to keep it very short, is workforce and also access to skills. One thing we saw is all of these plans, so we look into, artificial intelligence is coming, we're ramping up the multi-channel, omnichannel and so on. Do we have the right skills on board when it comes to data science, data engineers, architects? And we decided to do a mix ultimately of upskilling our internal people, but we also sourced then and started building up so-called digital hubs. One of them we have in Warsaw, and really quickly source those profiles which we just had to have on board to make the transformation happen. So busting the bureaucracy on the one hand and really drastically changing the operating model, and the other one is having profiles and skills on board to ultimately drive the transformation. So that's from Bayer, but I know the others also have great experience here.
Maybe just to add, I mean, that's super relevant because you're doing a massive transformation change, as we all know, and I think everything what you said is just up to date and super fresh, right? I mean, it's not something what you have done 2 or 3 years ago. It's just something what you are running at the time being and as we speak, right?
Yes, right now we see very promising results from the first front runners, but again, we're 100,000 people in the company, so shifting everyone towards that is quite an undertaking, so stay tuned for our results, yes.
Interesting. Thanks a lot, Saskia. Ronízia.
Yeah, I would name three massive changes. The first one is the famous organizational setup from global centralized to affiliate decentralized. So we've been through a massive change in the last year that encompasses organization, new roles, but essentially pushing the decision-making to closer to customers. I think we have all experienced, especially in above market organizations, where we tend to become far removed from the reality of the countries, right? So if you're working with teams from China, Japan, to Brazil, Latin America, with such different realities, it is important that we actually have a pulse about what's going on in these markets and give countries agility that they need so they can act fast. And then comes the challenge on scalability and consistency, right? So this is something, we just kick it off. It's something we are working on it. But it is essentially, it's something that dramatically changed the skills required to operate with the countries. From cross-functional skills or leading large projects to influencing the authority, right? So essentially countries are more empowered, so the dialogue with them shifts completely. The second is field deployment, right? So how we are organized in our field teams. And I think this is something that the industry have been experiencing a lot. We see from Novartis, Roche. I used to work at Roche, and I worked in this project as well by merging sales reps with MSLs and giving functions a new purpose and a new way of working. So this is something that we see the industry experiencing. At Biogen, we are very lucky to be challenged by the rare disease space. It's a space that is fascinating, that either you really get deep insights from patients and caregivers, or you would not survive, or you would not run a business. And something that we've learned very well, and I think it's still a work in progress, is that the field profile that you need to work in rare disease is dramatically different from the field profile that you need to work in a specialty care or work in a primary care, right? Your dynamic of problem solving, how you engage the account, the hospital, the client, the healthcare ecosystem change dramatically. And the third, I would say the magical power of AI. So this has been dominating our conversations. From one sense, it is absolutely crazy what's going on in terms of the possibilities. I was having a conversation with a company a few days ago, and they were telling me about how they are using digital twins so the CEO can deliver the earning calls via the digital twin, not himself, right? Which is something that would be unimaginable just 1 year ago.
But in any language, right?
In any language, obviously. So suddenly the CEO of the company can speak multiple languages, and it gives a new sense for hyper-personalization, right? And it also makes us think about the world of possibilities with Gen AI. We are also, as many in the industry, we are in the early stage of experimentation, testing, trying. We see some of the cases, especially if you see in congresses, right? So how do you capture a large amount of content and data and translate into something that is more palatable, that is easy to understand? But also, there's a big realization that for us to really play a strong role in this space, we need to think about skill sets. How do we scale up our teams? Think about processes, right? What does it mean, especially if you look at data, so external data versus internal data, and how to look at the ecosystem data as well, technology, and so on and so forth. So this is also a space that we are in an early stage, but we also, as the market as well, curious and start experimenting.
Definitely. Thanks a lot, Ronízia. Mostafa.
It's very hard to add to all of this, so I will try to address it from a holistic angle. So If we ask on the definition of transformation, I think that we will have multiple definitions based on the experience and the dynamics in each company. And I believe that the question itself, by design, it has the challenge. When you said between Merck, between commercial and medical, for me, the silos that exists from having fragmented journeys across the same company towards what we call transformation, and they think they are moving towards one North Star, while in fact, if you move across different functions, commercial, medical, access, IT, and so on, without alignments and without integration and having this kind of blend integrated journey, at the end of the day, they might not reach to the same destination that we want to do. So from the beginning, one of the lessons learned is we need to have a holistic blend journey that have everything, digital savvy, customer-centric, not only this patient-centric, not only this agile transformation, and at the same time fulfilling the simple approach of having a simple journey and innovative at the same time. So breaking the silos from the beginning and using the transformation energy to make sure that you have a holistic journey towards one North Star, for me is one of the challenges that we are facing now, because we are having different teams running as fast as possible, thinking they are moving towards the same direction while they need to orchestrate at a point of time.
And that's the toughest part.
It's definitely tough. Definitely tough.
Fully agree. Let's speak about leaders itself, because we all know that in the last 4 years, since we started the digital transformation, as we call it, like 4 years ago, many skill sets actually changed. But in terms of leaders itself, what kind of leaders do we actually need in the industry so that they really implement those changes and foster those whole process of change and transformation? Maybe we can start with you, Mostafa.
I can start. So we've been talking about Pharma 4.0 and the evolvement of everything in Pharma 4.0. And I think with the evolutionary speed of the Pharma 4.0, we missed also that the leaders, the executive ones, needs also to have leaders 4.0 mindset. So we need the same investments in having the leaders who do believe in proper diversity, equity, and inclusion, to capture the power of each and every person in the organization, who have a future forward-looking, getting the outside-in perspective and making sure that they leapfrog on the other industries. We need the leaders who believe in autonomy, trust, and many other values that can provide, let's say, the culture in the company that will enable the whole company to move towards the company's ambition. So we sometimes think that this will come top-down, and the manifesto of how to move forward with the organization and reach the Pharma 4.0 is just coming as an order, while in fact, up there needs to be also a proper scheme of how we upgrade our leaders, executive management and senior management. And if we ask the audience, I think, do you believe that there is no missed potential or there is no extra improvement that is needed to happen across the executive management? If you think that this is the case, I think we have an optimal adjusted level, while the organization is the one that requires the change. But from my perspective, I think it's both ways. It's across the executive management and across the whole organization as well. I don't know what my colleagues think about this.
Well, first of all, fully agree. And I think for us, when we, what I just described in terms of transformation, started the journey and said, you know, we want to have less layers, we want to run in these 90-day cycles. We said this will not work if exactly what you said, not the whole company is actually participating in that. And on the other hand, also having the right mindset, but also then leadership skills. And that starts with, and we have a very specific view and then training for that we said it needs to be the VAC leadership. It's VACC. And this is basically the 4 components. The first one is that we said leaders need to be visionaries. I think you touched on that. It's really understanding what's out there and understanding the trends, what's hitting us, and what is the ultimate implication of what we're seeing. So not just having, you know, the Gartner report, but really understanding what that means. The second one is basically then being the architect. An architect meaning you do understand how to translate what you saw there in an actual architecture in the company. So which teams do I need? What's the technology? What's my processes? Like really understanding how you build it so that you can ultimately execute and have a very good understanding how that works in this super fast transforming world. The third one is catalyst then. Understanding you will not do stuff by yourself. This is really about building the networks in the organization and really knowing how to get things done. So it's no longer the, oh, let me look at the org chart, who's actually available or who's responsible for that. It's really knowing via networks, who do you assemble as a team to get things extremely fast on the road. And then finally, it's coach. So we move away from this top-down, oh, I'm your manager, I tell you these are your goals, no, please do it. We check in 2 times a year and then hopefully we got some good results. It's really saying you're part of the team, part of the group now, and you act as a coach on the sideline to basically, or fully integrated, but more supporting, to really make sure the team has everything they need. And that's a drastic mindset shift compared to when you're for decades used to hierarchies, top down, that's aligned with 15 people and so on. But that's something where we put a lot of emphasis on, have a lot of trainings now, and will ultimately even recruit also, understanding that. And I think that's also setting the role or being role models for the rest of the organization. It's sort of saying we're all in one team now, and then basically trying to deliver the best. I think that's from our perspective.
Yeah, what else to say, right? Well, certainly a transformation leader, I would say 2 important characteristics, well, which is helping the teams remember every day the purpose and why they are there. So it's somebody who has a strong pulse about the market. So what is it that's going on out there, and especially what is it that we can do to make sure that patients get access to treatment? That's the job, right? So if you are the cleaning lady or the CEO of the company, you have the same purpose and you need to be very aware of it every day. And your job is to do everything in your power to make that happen, right? And I think the second thing is internally to make sure that the teams have the right space to, let's say, to rock the boat, right? So if you have a team has to do with a lot of bureaucracy and processes and things that are breaking, they're not working. It's your job to make sure that they have enough space and they have the autonomy to make things happen. And I would say ultimately, I'm a big fan of experimentation, right? So we are not in the age of running big bang projects anymore. It's about small experiments, testing, trying, and learning. And by doing that effectively, you are creating agents of change throughout the organizations that create a ripple effect that so positively impacts change.
Yeah, that's very interesting. The last question, which is also my favorite one, is which problems would you like to be solved in short term, let's say 12, 24 months, and why in pharma from this commercial digital medical side, and except saving dolphins, you know, because...
How many problems you want?
Well, we still have like 4 minutes, so...
I'll suggest one. So we are on a good track towards transforming the company and making sure that we reach to the customer engagement of the future, personalize the engagement. One of the critical pain points, and I'm quite sure it's across the board, is how to move from experimentation to scaling. So we're very good at doing a couple of experiments that are very nice with some people who have the mindset, the skill set, and the tool set to drive it. But then as soon as you start to scale this, to move it across the organization, you will start to face the challenges that entails into basic facts like data needs to be established from the beginning, mindsets and the capabilities. You cannot bring those advanced cars and then give it to basic drivers. You need to make sure that you prepare the foundations before moving. But at the same time, we cannot stop the experimentation because this is the pathway to move towards the transformation. So I think it will take us some time. And one of the key, let's say, solutions for this is conferences like this one to get the outside in and the lessons learned from those experiments from others and making sure that we do not repeat those mistakes again. We make sure that we build on what was working well and to get those expertise and then to accelerate our path. So pharma is not very far front when we compare it to other industries. So this is a gap, but it's an opportunity as well that we can use this to leverage what has happened across the other industries to make us move faster from experimentation to scaling. So I hope on the short term, we have some sort of fixation for this piece so that we accelerate and move to the next step.
Yeah, I think if I could use a magical wonder, because it requires a lot for this type of change, I would say we are, thanks to the recent reorganization we had, I think we are developing a whole new language for value creation in the organization. So what I wish that could happen in a short, probably midterm, is that we completely shift the dialogue that comes from messaging, segmentation, the more traditional engagement approach to the simple question on how can I help, right? As we are more focused in understanding the market dynamics and being closer to what real problems countries are solving, that we can really tackle problem solving in a completely different way. That by doing that, then I think AI can be a great partner for that. It is really understanding what's going on in the clinical practice, what physicians really need, what the healthcare ecosystem really need, and translate this into services, into content. And I think that's where omnichannel and new technologies coming presents a great opportunity as well.
Definitely. Thanks a lot, Ronízia. Saskia?
So if I would have the magic wand, I would definitely use it for AI regulation, because that's something, and I'm guess sure that everyone here in the audience, I mean, EU AI Act is coming, right? So that's one thing. And I think what we will be faced with very soon is that you sort of sit on the metrics of so many regulations. You have like data privacy, then you have EU AI Act, medical device. So all of these things which partially overlap, and it's extremely complicated to navigate that and make sure that you're ultimately still complying to it, that you're still fast, and all of the things which I just mentioned. So it would be great if basically the authorities could somewhat help us to navigate that, because this would be extremely relevant for Europe to stay competitive.
Definitely.
And for us to really get things on the ground extremely fast.
Definitely.
So I don't want to spend less time training teams on all the regulations versus doing good stuff for the patients.
That's also a very good point. And I definitely agree that Europe is like slowing down in every sense and meaning because of regulations, right? Definitely. So we are left with 2 minutes. So maybe we can use the left time for the questions from the audience. Anyone having some questions? I believe the discussion was quite interesting. The first one is the toughest, so where's the first one?
You have a question there?
We have a question, please.
Hello. Thanks very much for the great conversation. I just had a real quick question about the 90-day sprints. Could you give an example of like what level of how far you intend to get within those sprints for like a marketing team or a commercial team? Like how do they start those sprints, and like how far do they intend to get within 90 days and measure success and then start again? Just to give an idea of the scale of what you're trying to achieve within that period.
Can you make the microphone louder? Because we
Sorry, is that better?
Yeah, much
better.
better. Okay.
So a quick question about the 90-day sprints, basically. So I'm trying to get a sense of the scale of that. So in terms of if you would think practically for a single brand team or commercial team, what kind of goals are they setting for 90 days, and how are they achieving? How are they measuring success?
Yes. So first of all, no, it's holistically. So it's basically not only brand teams or not only. So it's basically what you're doing at the beginning. You understand what's the overall strategy you're pushing for the year, and of course then also the goals you need to achieve in terms of growth, penetration, and so on. And then you basically say, what is the outcome? And this is one of the key shifts we're trying to make at this point, which you want to achieve. And then you break it down in 90-day cycles. And the shift from output to outcome is one of the key things. Again, we're at this point trying to train the people. So you shift from, oh, I want to activate a certain channel and then send out 3 emails and have whatever. You're really saying, did I ultimately achieve more top line, bottom line, or anything else which actually contributes, but it needs to be one of the two. That being said, you then see what's a realistic goal for the 90 days, And the whole team, and this could really the brand manager, legal, IT, whatever is needed for those first steps, is then actually working against this outcome. And we then basically check after 90 days. And one of the things, and again, this is something I guess also everyone might know here in the audience, we need to make sure we actually have the right data available then to check after 90 days were we ultimately successful, yes or no. So what we're trying to fix currently and really working on this is what's now the full data insight you have so that you can see what was ultimately the outcome. Did we drive more sales? Sometimes that's very easy, the correlation, but sometimes you have to really have multiple data points and decide that. So in a nutshell, outcome measurement, very clear KPIs to top line, bottom line, and now again, now pushing the data to have that available. But it's a huge shift, so we're not there yet fully, we're getting there now, just to be fully transparent here. Yeah.
Anything to add, just quickly? Ronízia, Mostafa?
I think she covered it perfectly.
Absolutely, yeah. She covered all four of us, yeah. Thank you so much, Saskia. So thank you so much for joining the opening panel, and thank you, of course, for participating. Please.